Okay, I'm going to jump over here and share my screen. This is the second session of our program this week on Better Each Day. So one of the things I want to focus on here, this is a concept from Dr. Viktor Frankl, and we're focusing on how our conscious decisions make a difference in our life. So I want to share a couple things here, and then we'll come back and talk about it, because this session is focused on the actual compass itself. So we want to focus on our habits and why our mental habits make a significant difference. So we'll look here, and let's see if I can grab a pointer. Let's see if I can grab a laser pointer. How about that? Okay, so we can see the laser pointer. Okay, so let's see what we got here. So man does not simply exist, but he always decides. This is what we were talking about in the first session of Better Each Day this week. You always decide. This is a conscious decision what his existence will be. So think about this for a second. This is Dr. Viktor Frankl that wrote one of my favorite books called Man's Search for Meaning. Man does not simply exist. Well, what do we do? Well, we're always deciding what his existence will be, what he will become the next moment. By the same token, every human being has the freedom to change at an instant. What does that mean to you?
What it means to me is when you said decides, I was thinking about the chapter in Think and Grow Rich on decision, because that's the pivotal moment. Things are going to change when you make a decision.
And
maybe
go ahead.
Maybe you don't know how to do something like immediately, but when you make a decision, you're going to attract whatever you are going to be needing in the process. For example, if it's money, ideas, goals, or whatever, you'll learn to implement that from your decision.
So a lot of people are good at making decisions. In fact, some people are very good, depending on their degree type status, their education, formal education. So what distinguishes people when they are able to go through a mental process called decision making versus the ones that actually get results? What do you think is the difference?
Well, I mean, you can take that from several angles. I was thinking like decision. Sorry, my dog's kind of acting up.
It's all right.
But I was thinking, not to bring up negativity a little bit, but a lot of it has to do with response. I had someone last month vandalize my Jeep. Okay. I mean, they ripped, they bent my antenna, they put dents in my car, all kinds of stuff. And I learned they were jealous of my Jeep. It's cool, I will admit, but I didn't respond. I did call the police, but I did not press charges on the person because, for one, I knew who it was and I knew what they were capable of doing in life in general and where they were going. See, I knew where they were going, say a year from now. So I'm glad I let it go, because now things are different for that person.
Oh, good.
And they're very forgiving in that sense. And, you know, I just repaired it, but normally I don't let stuff like that go, but I did for this person because I knew what they were capable of. So I didn't respond in a really like react, you know. Sometimes you have to think down the line, is this really going to benefit this person by me doing this? Or if they can just get on the better path and become a better success than have something negative on their record. Maybe they just had a bad day. So that's not like me, but at the same time, I just let it go. And now I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I didn't, you know, but my Jeep's fine.
Good. Well, I think what you did here is you responded as opposed to reacting. And reacting, you know, if I had a really cool Jeep and somebody vandalized it, you know, well, you know, from Texas, it's just kind of one of our things, you know, we return fire. But that is more of a reaction. That is instinctual. Okay, you hurt my property, you messed up my property. I don't care who you are, where you're at, you need to be punished for that, because destruction of somebody else's property is not acceptable. Somebody worked hard for that. You're violating their property. Okay, so that's just normal manners. But you know what I tell people a lot of times, and I say this jokingly, is I say their mama didn't beat them enough growing up. And I say that not that I was beat growing up, but my mother and my father instilled a certain level of manners. We call it Southern hospitality, or just generally, how do you treat people, and with some level of decorum, respect, deference. Those kind of things, oddly, in our world today, seem to no longer be being taught. And so I see a lot of that, and that's my general idea: is your mother did not take care of the activity that they should have done somewhere along the way. So my point is when you have those other thought processes instilled into us, they come through the form of habit. But once upon a time, when you were first learning how to respond instead of react, it took effort. It took conscious thought. It took restraint. Like I'm sure, Sabrina, that you had to have when you walked out and found that someone had vandalized your cool Jeep. Your first reaction was probably to pull the pin and explode and go berserk. And if you knew who it was, who to go berserk on. So I admire your restraint, that you stopped, you paused, you probably had to breathe and cool down. And then what you did uniquely is, instead of functioning from instinct, which is fight or flight, when an event happens to us, that's pretty much when you act instinctually as more of our animalistic person. That's the person you see that explodes instantly with that temper and just goes off. And usually when they go off, it's like a bomb. They go off on who happens to be in the vicinity. And those other people are usually, innocent. So it's collateral damage. They don't really go off on the person that maybe they deserve to go off on. They just go nuts. Okay. And we look at those people and we go, wow, what an immature person. Why are we calling them immature? Because that's how untrained children function, is when something bad happens, they haven't had enough practice. They don't have enough habits developed in their life. And so what do when something in their vicinity goes wrong? They have this instant level of instinctual response that comes from our lizard brain, our amygdala, our animal instinct. And we don't have restraint yet. Restraint means pausing physically. It means breathing physically. And when we pause physically and we breathe physically, what does that do to our mental abilities? It gives us the ability to switch from instinct to, I need to run because I'm afraid, or I need to fight because I'm mad. And then you get options. And this is what Sabrina's telling us her story about, is when she stopped, she was angry, she's hurt, she's disappointed. Oh my gosh, look at my Jeep, it's messed up. And she's going through all this process. And somewhere along the way, when she realized who did it, she switched over from her amygdala, determining how she was going to function without choice. That's the difference. That's when we call someone moving from immature. What we're really saying is that you're more animalistic. You're functioning from instinct. You're functioning from reaction. And when we have the ability to pause and think about what our response is, think about the scenario, and you had incredible levels of empathy and consideration for this individual, that you thought, maybe there's something else here. And that whole process that you went into right there is actually the response. You chose a measured response. That's the term for it. And your measured response could still have been to go get a broom handle or maybe an axe handle and, teach them a lesson that their mama obviously didn't teach them. Okay. I'm joking with you slightly facetiously, but that's how we think about stuff from Texas. If someone needs a little bit of lesson, we get a broom handle. If they need a big lesson, we grab an axe handle. And I'm being slightly facetious because that's how you get taught lessons if your mama didn't teach you. Well, then that's my responsibility now because you walked into my life and messed my world up. I got to teach you a lesson. Now,
Sabrina, was you thinking that you're talking about they were capable of? Did you think they might gonna harm you if you put charges?
No, I don't think they would have harmed me. I mean, I'm pretty good about defending myself, but I was thinking like down the road, because this was a person in high school. You know how,
Okay.
when we're young, we make stupid decisions, and I knew what college they were accepted at. And I'm like, you are way better than this,
right.
because I didn't want to give them a record where they go to this high, I didn't want to ruin their college experience. However, I did lay down the law. I took a video of it and sent it to the police department. So it is on record, and all I have to do is say, hey, I changed my mind.
Sure.
And they know that. And
Mm.
they've left my Jeep alone, and they're going to leave me alone, and all
There you
that
go.
sort of thing. So I'm giving this individual an opportunity because I know they are better, and if I
see.
kind of put on the brakes, I was kind of just thinking in the future, like down the road, is this really going to be better for this person? Maybe when they go, out of this environment in this area, you know what I'm saying? And they go somewhere else, maybe they'll realize some things.
Sure.
And they can do it up there. I just, for one, but I don't know. It's that book by Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil. Have you guys read that?
I don't think I've read that one.
No.
That one is extremely powerful. It almost did not get printed. But after reading that, I'm thinking, is this someone just trying to, because sometimes our thinking abilities, we kind of think things are much bigger than what they are, So anyway.
What was the name of the book again?
Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. He was really not, well, he wrote it, he never had it printed, but I believe it was his niece or somebody, whoever he left his writing manuals to in his like will or whatever. It was actually a family member that actually had it published and gave it to
Cool.
oh gosh, what's her name? She's really popular with Robert Kiyosaki, and she's over the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Well, she had it printed and
cool.
exposed it, and that's what I was thinking about the whole time. I'm thinking, I don't know everyone's beliefs, but it was just about my decision
Yep.
at that time. And I chose to give this teenager a break and just to let it go, which isn't like me to let something like this go. But now that I see this individual progressing in a way, I'm glad now I did not press charges.
Outstanding. Go ahead, David.
And it took a lot for me to,
I see.
to like, I don't want to say forgive, but to respond in a different way, a more mature way, like Steve discussed.
Restraint.
But I had to really,
Oh yeah.
But I'm so glad I let it go, because now they're progressing, in different ways. So do I think jail and a judge and attorney fees would really better their lives in that way? No, with a record. And so anyway,
good thought process. I mean,
I think this must give you a good feeling after done it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, but I also have the upper hand too. You touched my Jeep again, and
Oh, sure. Yeah. But you gave someone.
Then you come back with your axe.
Or yeah, your axe handle. Your axe handle. Yeah.
You can just mount the axe to the back window of the Jeep so they can see it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Just put their initials on it and they'll be fine.
Yeah, that I always think about this. I don't know if you guys know of the real story of Buford Pusser, I think is his name. It was the movie that they made the story after called Walking Tall. Hey, Linda, good to see you here. So he was a sheriff, Walking Tall, and I think there was a couple of different. There was a remake of it, but anyway, he actually walked around and took care of. I guess you would call it. He carried it was a 4x4 that he'd had a handle, like a bat handle, like laid down at the end, but he carried this 4x4. And so he pretty much distributed his own version of justice, I guess you'd say. And so the movies are kind of funny, but it's a real life story. And it's how he took care of this, small Southern town with people trying to do their own stuff. And he had to teach them some manners. So when he took over, there was a little bit of that instant level of justice distributed from him as the local sheriff that was no longer going to put up with the way people were disrespecting other people and other people's property. So it's, that's a little bit of what do you want to call it? Cowboy American culture, I guess you would call it if you were coming from someplace else. And they're like, wow, that's a little bit rash. It's a little brash. What is that? Especially coming from the South. I thought you guys were supposed to have Southern hospitality. Yes, we are, until someone's not hospitable back. Then we actually retaliate, and you don't want to see that. But anyway, we're having some good fun here, and I appreciate the story, the insights. I want to jump over here and do a screen share and kind of jump over and show you how this actually applies inside of our compass. So, we have two parts of our compass. This is the front, and when you fold it down, this is what it looks like. And we've split plenty of time over the last 5 months talking about building a legend. How do you build a goal? What matters most? The clues, and going through this whole version here, talking about, the understanding, what Aristotle taught young Alexander, to be as you wish to seem, and understanding all of these elements, the skills that you need. How do you act as if you already have and become the person that you want to become? So these are the things we spend a lot of time focusing on. We get over here to the what if session. Okay. These are the questions that you ask yourself. What if I couldn't fail? Or what if I couldn't fail? What would I begin? Who would I become? What if I stopped regretting my past? And then I give you some other areas here for you to put out. The value of having what ifs is giving the mind the ability to think about how things would be different if you didn't react, but you responded differently, if you became that different person. And so on the inside of it, you have a couple of things in here that we can focus on. The ability we talked about in our first session, the principle that people need to be appreciated. We were talking about the 10-5 rule in our first session today that Sean Acord, Harvard, and all of their studies, and the happiness advantage that he wrote a book about 12 years ago, this is the biggest thing that people feel lonely. They feel depressed. They're anxious. And where that comes from is a deep part of their soul, that they feel that they're by themselves, that no one else cares, that their life doesn't matter, that they're not connected to the rest of society. And only for very rare individuals, I would call them mountain men, that like to go build a cabin, up in, the Yukon somewhere, and they don't want to see anybody, for 11 and a half months out of the year until they come back for supplies again. And those individuals are rare, and they prefer that type of lifestyle. It's not right or wrong, it's a preference. But everyone else that's not choosing to go out there and live, out in the wilderness, we live in society. And we can change the way society functions by building a ripple effect. This ripple effect comes with demonstrating to other people that they are appreciated. And that can be anything from acknowledgement, from eye contact, to a nod, to actually giving someone, if they come within 5 feet of us passing, let's say at a store or down a hallway or wherever our offices are and in work, actually making a comment to them. How are you? Hope you have a great day. Something maybe complimentary that's appropriate, right? So these are the kind of things here. And what I actually do every week At the beginning of the week, I actually list 7 people. So I use these lines and I list down who are the people each day that I want to make an impact in their life. How do I make a measured impact? Is I choose to send a 1 or 2 line text. And I send it to these individuals and I think about them ahead of the week when I do my my new compass. And I think about who would be the individuals that I want to make an impact on that have touched my life. Who are the individuals that I want to encourage? Who are the people that I think just need that little extra acknowledgement? And you list them out here. Doesn't mean these are the only people, but by doing this every day and choosing the ability to make a difference in people's lives, it increases our life. We're making a conscious choice to this happiness advantage. And here's the key thing. Sean Aker talked about the key thing of the happiness advantage was his definition of joy that actually came from the ancient Greeks. And joy, not this fleeting level of happiness, but an ongoing level of joy. How do you enjoy life during the ebbs and flow of the day, or the ebbs and flow of the week, or the month, or the year, when things are getting really, really cool, great, and they're exciting, and we're getting all the wins that we want, and then all of a sudden we see the decline as things come back down, and what happens? Then you're in the valley again, and things aren't working right, and things are going wrong, and things are difficult, and it's harder. And so you have these ebbs and flow. And the thing is happiness is easy to get it here and almost impossible to happen when it's down here, right? There's some of those days that you just feel beat up, run over, like a steam shovel just ran over you and just plowed you, right? How many of you had those days? You know I do. We have them on a frequent basis. And that's what our life does, is it does this on a regular basis. The Greek definition of joy that Sean discovered was the feeling that we have moving towards our potential. Joy is this ongoing feeling of moving toward our potential. So think about this, our potential. What is your potential? What is the potential of the other people that we connect with every day? And it is that idea of who we can become. Just like Aristotle taught young Alexander, be as you wish to seem. The critical concept from the smartest philosopher in the Greek realm at that time impacted a little 13-year-old boy living in the palace with his father, the king. And the reason why the king went and got Aristotle is because he wanted to give his young prince son the insights to lead a country, to lead a nation, and he ended up leading a world. He became an emperor over one of the largest, what would you call it, empires that the world has ever seen. But back then he was just a 13-year-old boy, but he planted the seed, and the seed was be as you wish to seem. The concept is this: rehearse who you want to be. Rehearse who you want to become. And Sabrina's explanation today was really on point, I think. She was practicing a level of restraint and a decision not to react when something bad happened, but a choice to respond in a relevant fashion based on this other person that did her wrong, but seeing who they could become, who they should be. They, like she said, listen to her. She said, I knew they were better than their actions. They had acted or reacted below their level of capability. So because she made that conscious assessment, she chose a reaction that was a response. She chose to respond in a way that, like she said, I didn't want to cause something to get on their record because I wanted them to have this fulfilling life. So she saw a vision of this other person's future that, guess what, that other person probably didn't have, or they would not have done this crime. It was a crime to vandalize her vehicle, okay? So when we act with response, when we look at other people, we see their better version. We are helping them to act as if they are already their better version. We can nudge them, encourage them. The smile and the acceptance that we're talking about, the happiness factor, can impact other people's lives. When we connect with them, you can acknowledge positive psychology is about finding someone doing a good action and helping them turn that action into a habit by authentic, genuine acknowledgement. Giving them the smile, giving them that's great work. What David talked about earlier with one of his patients is giving them that acknowledgement about how that patient, their fortitude, their grit, the fact that they were continuing to do their PT, even though it was hard for them. He expressed to that gentleman, that veteran, hey, you've made an impact on me. Watching you do this hard stuff, even when it's not easy to do, not fun to do, but you're doing it because it's the right thing to do. And you did that. And I'm acknowledging you and telling you that you made a difference in my life. And what did that happen? That created a ripple effect throughout the whole PT environment, right? Because that guy, David, that you were complimenting, he ended up, that reaction to that response to that created other ripple effects throughout to other people. I think you were mentioning other people that came back to you later and told you how that made an impact in their life. So that's how we make a difference in this world. Being here at Better each day, we train every Saturday, what? So that we can learn to react less and respond more. Response is part of our conscious choice and decision to make the world a better place. Well, how do we know how to do that? Is A, we can find other people that have already done great things like that. And then secondly, you can many times look at your reaction, that's the fight or flight thing inside of us that's more animalistic. And we can say, okay, what action can I have here? What response can I have here that is not a reaction of fear and not a reaction of anger, which are the two drivers of fight or flight. So if I put away fear and I put away anger, what's left? And what's left is that thing that is less animal. It's not going to be vicious or react with what given you my whatever concept of Texas justice. Okay. Do you really need to have this? Walker, Texas Ranger. Okay. My dad watches every one of Chuck Norris's. I think he's seen every one of them, every rerun of Walker, Texas Ranger 50 times each. He's a big fan of Chuck Norris going back to his martial arts and all that kind of stuff. So that's what people think that, in fact, I remember early on in corporate 35 years ago, I went to Portland, Maine for a rookie school for 3 weeks after going through training. And everybody thought that I, coming from Dallas, Texas, was supposed to be dressing like Chuck Norris. They wanted to know where my cowboy hat was and my dust coat. And did I carry 6 guns? And, did I drive a big truck that was lifted up with dualies and all this kind of stuff? And I'm like, no, that's a small group of people that live in Texas that actually embrace that extreme level of Texanism. Okay. I mean, so my point is we all get stereotyped. Go ahead, Steiner.
Yeah, when I was starting with these sessions with you, and I heard you off from Texas, Dallas, and so was Matt. The first thing that I could relate to Dallas was the TV series when
Right.
I was young, the GR and so on, with a big cowboy hat.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's happened to me many times because that show was so absolutely popular. I remember I was actually sitting down for dinner in Jamaica in Montego Bay one time. And shoot, this was probably 91, no, maybe 1990 or something like that. And every couple that came up to the table, they would introduce you and where you're from. And so it's my ex-wife now, but so we stepped up there, and the people at the table, of course, were from all over the world, and people started humming. And I thought, uh-oh, this is weird. Why are they humming? And what I didn't hear is they were humming the theme song for Dallas.
Okay.
And I really didn't pick up on it. And so when we were sitting down, I thought, okay, this is going to be a really weird dinner. Why are people humming at the table? And so the folks from Britain spoke up and they said, have you ever met him? And I'm like, who are you talking about? Or, what are you talking about? And then they said, JR, I mean, you live in Dallas. Have you ever met him? And I was at first thinking, or this is a joke, are they being facetious? And I realized they were not. They really thought the weekly TV series of Dallas was real.
Was
And
for
I said,
real, yeah.
yes.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't realize how big and popular the show was even outside of the US. And so once I realized that they weren't being joking, they were really asking a serious question. And I told them that I had actually my wife at the time, her company Christmas party was actually at the big place in the barn where Dallas was actually filmed at. When I told them I was there at Christmas, then they really got interested. Like, oh my gosh, did you open up presents with JR? And I'm like, okay, no. All right, so JR isn't real, okay, and he didn't die, and all this kind. This is a series, okay. So anyway, we ended up having a lot of fun. But yeah, people stereotype and they think about it.
Can I also say something about Chuck Norris?
Sure.
I think it's if you see the series and take
Right.
what it is, it's really great because I remember one of the scenes he running out with his pickup,
Right.
and coming back and goes out in the field and beat up all the guys
Right.
and back in the truck and all the luggage is full of beat up men.
Right. Well,
and in the Expendables, he joined with Sylvester Stallone, and
right. Yep, sure did. Yeah.
and he has, I think, it's one of the greatest line he has, because he's saying one other of the teammates says to Chuck Norris, or his character, that I heard you was beaten of a cobra lately. Yes, it was pain and blood and tears, but after a week, the cobra died.
Well, that's kind of like what do you call the avatar, the persona of how they love to portray that particular character. Yeah, and I remember that he walked out with the Expendables, and I think he had a couple Uzis in his hands, and he's shooting everybody, and he saves them and all that kind of stuff. That's just kind of like the ongoing story of that. So here I put in the chat, I dropped our link in there for the third session. And so let's jump off and we'll come back on there. We got about 20 more minutes. I'll see you there in 30 seconds.